Welcome to today's evidence-based practice training on visual supports. Please note that this presentation is approximately an hour long and will include opportunities for activities. So we recommend having a notebook or paper ready to write down any notes or to record your reflections. Additionally, please feel free to pause the video as necessary to give you time to reflect, complete the activities, or take short breaks. Okay, let's get started. Our learning objectives for today's training are to gain an awareness of CAPTAIN, EBPs, and AFFIRM, define visual supports and their benefits, identify the different types of visual supports, and explore when and how to implement visual supports. Now we'd like to provide you with some information and resources that will allow you to explore today's learning more in depth at your own pace. Let's begin by examining CAPTAIN, Evidence-Based Practices, EBPs, and AFFIRM. What is CAPTAIN? First, CAPTAIN stands for California Autism Professional Training and Information Network, and it is an interagency network based in California. CAPTAIN was created to support individuals with autism spectrum disorders, or ASD. This is done by providing information and training of resources such as evidence-based practices, otherwise known as EBPs, and emphasizing how to use EBPs to assist students to access the California state standards and prepare them for college and career readiness. Even though research shows EBPs are beneficial for students with ASD, these are practices that can be beneficial for all of our students as well. For more information about this network, the CAPTAIN website is listed here, www.captain.ca.gov.
What are evidence-based practices, or EBPs? Evidence-based practices refer to specific practices that are targeted and have substantial evidence demonstrating their positive effects on children with autism spectrum disorder. Presently, there are 28 EBPs that have been identified as effective in addressing challenging behaviors commonly associated with ASD. Our focus today is on one of these EBPs, visual supports. These instructional or intervention procedures are precise and are supported by rigorous scientific research. For a practice to be considered evidence-based, researchers must provide data demonstrating its efficacy in producing favorable outcomes for individuals with autism spectrum disorders. EBPs are versatile and can be implemented across various settings, including homes, clinics, other therapy sessions, and most importantly, schools. AFFIRM stands for Autism Focused Intervention Resources and Modules. It's a valuable resource that offers modules featuring detailed step-by-step procedures for implementing, using, and monitoring evidence-based practices with students. On the AFFIRM website, you can access supplemental materials and handouts related to each EBP, which can be downloaded for further reference and use. To delve deeper into AFFIRM and explore its offerings, we encourage you to visit the website and create a free account. The link is provided on the slide. Let's take a moment to reflect on the visual information we encounter in our daily lives. Think about the different types of visual cues you encounter during activities like driving, grocery shopping, and traveling. How does this visual information assist us in our daily routines? Take a minute to think about how visual information is used, and how they contribute to our everyday experiences. As we can see, visual information is presented in a wide range of settings, and our ability to process and apply that information is imperative to our ability to navigate our environments and to basically just live life. For example, you may have thought of traffic signs that help us know the speed limits, or when you're grocery shopping, there's price tags to help us stay within budget. Or when traveling, there's restrooms and elevators and other facilities often labeled with symbols. All of these things help us in our daily lives. Now that we have brainstormed just how important visual supports are to us in our daily lives, let's learn more about EBPs. To establish what is considered an evidence-based practice, we refer to the National Clearinghouse on Autism Evidence and Practice, also known by its acronym NCAPE, where they define an EBP as focused intervention practices that have evidence of efficacy in promoting positive outcomes for learners with ASD. On this slide, we have NCAPE's definition of visual supports, which says, visual supports are concrete cues that provide information about an activity, routine, or expectation, and/or support skill demonstration. Visual supports are often combined with other practices such as prompting and reinforcement, and they are also embedded in many more complex or packaged interventions. Some examples of common visual supports are visual schedules, activity schedules, work systems, graphic organizers, visual cues, and scripts. As you can see in this chart, visual supports are effective across grade levels and ages, from toddlers to young adults, and from social to academic to vocational. For a closer look at this chart, or to access the NCAPE's full report on evidence-based practices, you can do so by visiting the link shown here on the slide. Let's watch the Affirm video, A Case for Visual Supports. In this video, notice how the students benefit when the teacher structures her environment with visual supports, including boundaries, visual cues, and class schedules. We will be talking about each of these visual supports during our presentation. Let's watch.
Could this be a case for visual supports? Watch the teacher help the student in gray sweatpants move to the carpet. Also, observe the other children in the background.
Hey, bud. Sit.
What did you notice? The student in gray had a difficult time moving to the carpet for the next activity. The teacher had to physically help the student go to the carpet. Did you notice how the other children did not appear to understand what they needed to do or where they needed to be? Now let's watch a second clip of this classroom after the teacher has implemented visual supports. Consider what has changed.
No, we're gonna match. Hey. She can't hit the baby. Yeah, she baby.
The classroom now has clear boundaries for each center. Within centers, visual cues such as the pictures showing the steps of hand washing provide a clear visual for what needs to happen in an area or center. At the end of the clip, you can see the students now understand expectations and are more engaged in activities.
Now let's look at different visual supports in different settings. Visual supports are any tool presented visually that supports an individual as they move through the day. Here we see in the bubbles on the right side of the slide that these visual supports may include organization systems, labels, the arrangement of the environment, visual boundaries, schedules, timelines, scripts, written words, objects within the environment, or even maps. All of these visuals can work together for student success. Sometimes we think of visuals as just pictures. However, it is important to note that a visual can be any of the things we just mentioned. Visual supports can also be divided into 3 categories. The first category is visual and physical boundaries. These are visuals that help us navigate our physical environment and structure. Another category are visuals that are used as visual cues, such as pictures and written cues. Included in this category are touch points, visual work systems, and scripting. And the third category is visual schedules. That is a visual that communicates the sequence of events or upcoming activities. Visual supports are effective in a variety of settings. Parents and family members can use visual supports in the home. Early interventionists in educational and community-based environments use visual supports as well. Also, paraprofessionals and teachers alike, as well as therapists, can use visual supports in the classroom setting. Again, although visual supports have been proven to work with individuals with disabilities, all students can benefit from visual supports. Take a moment to observe what types of visual boundaries we use in this gallery of picture frames. In these pictures, you can see how colored paper, furniture, tape, partitions, rugs, and labels can be used to create boundaries. We can't just set up boundaries and expect that students will know how to use them. We must teach students how to use boundaries by first introducing the established boundary. Walk them into the boundary area and point out the important boundaries and explain what types of tasks and activities they are to complete in that area. For example, when introducing the visual structure for lining up, a teacher could say, "Look at the markings on the floor. Follow the feet. They tell you where to wait or where to stand. Remember, we stand in a line before recess and before lunch." Teaching students how to recognize boundaries will take time to incorporate into routines. But remember, students will only find boundaries meaningful when they are used consistently. The first category of visual supports, visual, physical boundaries, and structures, are described as a specific type of visual support that uses furniture arrangement, labeling, and color coding to make the use of a particular space more obvious and clear. Creating a visual boundary for a learner who has a tendency to get up and wander around the room is a great way to show them that it is okay to stand up when they need to, but that free range in the room is not okay. Sometimes open spaces can be difficult for students because there are not clear boundaries set. So using tape, stop signs, shelving to divide up areas can really help establish those clear boundaries. Think about how you can use rugs, bookshelves, partitions, and even just the arrangement of tables. Using label also helps students know which materials to use, where to find them, and which materials stay together. This will help increase the likelihood that materials will also be put away. Arranging items by color coding shows and teaches learners how to organize space. You can also color code according to what activity is expected in that area. Visual supports can be used at any time throughout the day. Visual and physical boundaries and structures can also include covering unnecessary materials in order to minimize distractions and to increase on-task behavior. Structuring the classroom environment with boundaries can provide students with additional information about where specific areas begin or end, what activities they are expected to do in certain settings, or let them know where they should be during a specific time of the day. When creating boundaries, consider using lighting, objects, and furniture to clearly designate the boundary area. Labels can also define a specific space. For example, you can create a label for a reading area or label student desks with their names. As we can see in this slide, this classroom used furniture to create distinct boundaries. The shelves and partitions are used here to decrease visual distractions. Let's do a quick activity called Think and Draw. Take out a blank piece of paper and pen or pencil. Sketch a simple map of your classroom or a classroom that you have visited. On the map, label a few of the visual supports that are in place and a couple of visual supports that you would like to add. Maybe note the ones you would like to add with an idea bubble. Take the next few minutes to think and draw. Please feel free to pause this presentation to complete this activity and then resume when ready. Welcome back. We are sure you thought of many visual supports to add to your classroom environment. Now we'll move on to our next topic.
Our next topic is visual cues. Visual cues are objects, pictures, symbols, or written words that provide a student with information and a prompt about how to do a routine, activity, behavior, or skill. Who benefits from visual cues? These are some questions you need to ask. First, does the activity, event, or concept cause anxiety or frustration for the learner? Next, is a great deal of adult support required for the learner to be successful with the activity, event, or concept? And third, is the activity, event, or concept difficult for the learner to understand when only verbal information is provided? If you answered yes to any of these questions, it is likely that the learner would benefit from a visual support. Here is a video from Affirm on visual cues. As you watch, notice how the adult uses a visual cue to signal to the learner with ASD to be quiet. Let's watch.
Watch how the adult uses a visual cue to signal to the learner with ASD to be quiet. This cue is portable and could be used in multiple settings, such as the cafeteria or a general education setting if needed.
What letter is this?
BHST.
Right. This letter is B. What picture starts with the B?
Blue. Then the glue on the glue. The glue on 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 the glue. Quiet.
Take a moment to think about how the quiet visual cue is portable and could be used in multiple settings. On this slide, we see a variety of visual cues. The visual cues demonstrated here can be used to support with assignment timelines or due dates. Some of the other visual supports you see support organization and behavior. Please take a moment to review the different examples. Let's bring our attention to the visual cue numbered 2, or the visual cue in the middle of the slide. This visual helps prepare the student for individual classes by listing the possible materials needed, paired with the expected routine for the class. This visual cue incorporates a combination of words, phrases, and pictures. Notice it is also color-coded and includes a way for the student to check off which materials will be needed for class on that day. Touch points are a type of visual cue that uses a multisensory approach to teach the concept of numbers and letters, and may be used to teach basic operation. Touch points may also be considered a prompt because the goal is to fade and create independence. The first type of work system we are going to look at is called left to right. This type of work system may be the most appropriate way to present work materials to students who may not respond to verbal language. When the student arrives at the work location, for example, a small group work area or an independent work area, all of the materials to be completed will be placed to the left of the student on a shelf, table, or binder. To the student's right will be a finished location, which may be a box, basket, or simply the right pocket of a folder. The student is instructed to complete the activities on their left with adult guidance and assistance if materials are just being introduced. Or once the activity is completed, it is placed in the location labeled finished. This left to right system allows students to see how much work and what work is required, and the concept of finished is visible through the transfer of materials to the finished location. The student is also able to see what activity will be happening next, as an object, photo, or icon from his or her schedule is placed at the end of the task sequence to direct the student to the next activity. Once a student has learned how to use the work system independently and has mastered a number of skills or tasks, the student should regularly practice activities with a work system independently. The second type of work system we want to share with you is called matching. The matching work system gives a student a systematic way to approach a series of tasks or an activity. With this type of system, the learner is taught how to match visual symbols to containers holding tasks, then completes them by following the sequenced visual cues. When the student arrives at the work location, a strip of visual information will answer the work system questions for them. On the strip will be pictures, icons, or words, and to the student's left will be work tasks on a shelf or in containers that are labeled with an identical picture, icon, or word. The student will take off the first symbol, match it to the corresponding activity, complete the activity, and place it in the finished location. The work continues until all symbols are matched to the corresponding task, and the completed activities are placed in the finished basket. The student is able to see what is happening next as an object, photo, or icon from his or her schedule is placed at the end of the task sequence to direct the student to the next activity. Lastly, the third type of work system we are sharing today is called checkoff. Once a step in the sequence is completed, that item is checked off. Marking the completed item helps the student see the progression of their work. The final step included in this type of work system directs the student to what they are expected to do once all of the items on the list are checked off. To teach visual cues, a teacher may use specific strategies to model their use. One strategy that is commonly used to teach visual cues is called scripting. Scripting helps learners initiate and sustain a conversation or interaction. And while scripting is often presented in writing, it can also include picture cues or direct verbal prompts to present a set of comments or questions that commonly occur in a sequential manner. In this video that we will watch it's called Teaching Visual Cues, notice how the adult teaches the learner how to use a visual script to increase his ability to talk with peers during a preferred activity playtime. Let's watch.
The learner with ASD was not interacting with peers while playing. The teacher decided to use visual cues to help the learner with ASD talk with other peers while playing a preferred activity, trains. What strategies does the teacher use to teach the learner how to use visual cues?
Hey, Eli, do you remember that we are working on talking to friends when we play? So guess what? You and I are going to be friends today, okay? And what are we going to play with? The train, and I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to pull out a phrase from this box, and I'm going to look at it. It says, wow, you are, and I'm going to use this to talk about what you're playing with, okay? When I'm all done, I'm going to put it in this bucket, and then I'm going to play a little bit. Then I'm going to pull out another one. It says, I see the...
Did you notice that the teacher first explained to the student what skill they were working on? She then modeled how to use the visual cue to address the target skill of talking to friends while playing.
In this video, you probably noticed all of the strategies the teacher used to teach the learner how to use visual cues. It was terrific how she first explained to the student what skill they were working on.
Now let's see how we can support students with schedules. There are some key points to consider when implementing visual schedules. First, all schedules must be age and developmentally appropriate, meaning the schedule should be both visually engaging and easily understood by the student. For example, it may be arranged from left to right, top to bottom, or be provided one section at a time. It should also indicate what activities will occur and in what sequence. And finally, visual schedules should have a way to indicate to the learner when each activity is finished or completed. One way a student can demonstrate an activity is complete is by having them physically move the completed activity into a finished pocket in the folder, or by having them draw a check mark next to the completed activity. When using visual schedules, you can differentiate between individual schedules, as we discussed, and whole class schedules. When using visual schedules, you can differentiate between individual schedules, as we discussed, and whole class schedules. When using a whole class visual schedule, it is important to be consistent with how to use it. Schedules are essentially a visual promise to students, and while there are times when plans need to change, for example, when a staff member is absent or the weather changes, having a visual schedule allows students to be prepared for changes and anticipate adjustments. Here are some examples of individual student schedules. Individual student schedules can be stationary or portable. Stationary schedules are those that require students to physically go to the schedule to determine what activities are taking place. When using stationary visual schedules, support students in knowing when to reference their individual schedule. It is also important to note that stationary schedules must have a transition icon or an item to indicate when to check the schedule. On the other hand, portable schedules are meant to be carried around by the student. These should have a way for students to check off or remove items as they are completed throughout the day. Both stationary and portable schedules have been proven to be highly effective strategies for teaching students important self-management skills. These schedules are also helpful in allowing students to generalize and see how different activities apply individually. Here are a few other ideas on how to incorporate important visual supports within the instructional day. For example, highlighting tape can be used to highlight essays. It is a wonderful visual support for students who need to organize their thoughts, and perhaps teachers could use a swatch of highlighter tape as feedback for the students to indicate when an item or an idea is missing or needs to be rephrased. You can also support read-alouds with actual items. For example, if students are unfamiliar with many of the foods described in The Very Hungry Caterpillar, support them with visuals and bring in some of the food from the story so that children can see, touch, and smell, and even taste them. Additionally, when teaching a lab or science experiment, you may assist students visually by providing them with pictures of the science experiment. Anticipate what students will see so that they can match pictures with their written observations. Now that we have discussed a variety of visual cues, let's explore a different type of visual support: conversation starters. Being able to participate in social exchanges is so important for our students. However, how can we teach this in an engaging way? Well, let's watch a video that demonstrates the use of conversation starters. In this video, notice the small group game setting, the visual strip where students can refer to when they want to make a comment, how they ask a follow-up question or answer a question, and then also look for teacher responses to the students' comments. Let's watch.
This video is going to show conversation starters. Conversation starters are utilized to help children who have a difficult time participating in social exchanges. A lot of times our kiddos have a difficult time asking follow-up questions, answering, commenting. So this game is going to be utilized to help them understand this skill and then participate with it in the natural environment. What they were given was a visual strip that had 3 different things written on it. They could either comment, ask a follow-up question, or simply answer the question, which is the 3 parts of having a natural conversation. There was a shape that was delineated at the top that correlated to the question that was asked, and they could utilize their strip to help them know what to say when the situation arose. These prompts are faded out over time so that our children can participate in a more natural conversation. All right, guys, we're going to play a game in group today that's going to help us ask people questions or talk about things when it arises in conversation. Are we ready?
Yes.
All right, Daniel, you get to start because you're to my right.
Yay.
Go ahead, read that card. What, can you read it out loud, please?
I'm wearing a new shirt today.
Let's see who you're going to say that to.
I'm wearing a new shirt today. Looks nice. Thank you.
Good. David, can you sit up so I can hear your voice real nice? Oh, man, that's awesome. Okay, take your card. Roll the dice. See who you're going to ask it to. Who's it say?
I ate fried lunch yesterday.
That's gross. All right, Molly. Okay, well, we'll see who you're gonna ask. Or tell that to.
What's your favorite book? My favorite book? You know, I like drama. There's a book called Drama about a girl and she's in drama club and it's really good.
And it's your favorite? Very cool. All right.
Molly, I just got a new book yesterday. Cool.
Good eye contact, Molly. Nice job.
I hope you enjoyed that video just as much as I did. It's one of my favorites, as it shows how engaging conversations can be for our students. Now that we've seen how much fun practicing conversation can be for students, let's think of our own students. First, choose a comment category from the slide that you would like to focus on, such as support and engagement. First, choose a comment category from the slide that you would like to focus on, such as support and encourage, as noted here with an asterisk. Think of a way you would teach this skill to your student. For instance, you could prepare a conversation game for a small group of students, and as in the video, students roll the dice, read a card as a specific classmate comments on it. The peer might say, "That's great," or "That's really cool," or perhaps create a board game tailored to giving support and encouragement. As students make their way around the board, they land on different statements that require a peer to give support and/or encouragement. For example, a student might read one statement about how they made a soccer goal but felt nervous about being able to make another one. A peer could reassure them that their talents from a list of sentence starters and encouraging phrases. Or instead of that game, how about a matching game where they have to decide if the statement is on or off topic? Both the picture and speech bubble have to match. As you can see, there are lots of fun ideas for students to practice engaging in conversations. Now we would like for you to spend a few minutes thinking of your students. Choose one of the focus comment categories and think of a way you would like your students to practice responding. Pause the video for this activity and resume when ready.
Here are some resources that will help support you in the use of visual supports with your students. Affirm has a Visual Supports EVP brief packet. In it, you will find a pre-assessment, a progress monitoring form, and an implementation checklist. For assistance in determining the category of support that would work best for your student, use the Visual Support pre-assessment form. This is designed to help you identify if there is a need for visual boundaries, visual cues, or visual schedules. The Visual Support Progress Monitoring form can help you collect data on the learner's use of visual support. The Visual Support Implementation Checklist contains helpful tips, and the document will help you keep track of the 3 steps of implementation: planning, using, and monitoring. The forms are downloadable from the Affirm website and also in a packet that we will share on the next slide. For our presentation today, we have created an EVP Visual Supports resource folder with a packet from the Affirm website and a reference sheet with links from the presentation. You can access the resources through the bit.ly or the QR code.
Here are the key points that we covered during our presentation today. Tools presented visually that support an individual throughout the day. Effective across grade levels. Includes visual boundaries, schedules, and cues. Effective in home, community, and classroom settings. Can use concrete objects, pictures, symbols, or written words. We have created a Padlet so that you can take a look at how to use some of the different visual supports with your students. Please take a moment to pause the video, use the QR code or the bit.ly to explore the resources and have fun exploring. We would also like you to take a moment, if you haven't done so already, to join our Schoology course. We are also sharing with you the links to the Captain and Affirm website. Here's the contact information for the Division of Special Education K-12 instructional team. Please reach out. We're happy to support you. This concludes this presentation. Thank you for your participation.